Kennedy and the Cold War. President John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960 and was inaugurated in January of 1961. Kennedy came into office in the midst of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. He believed that the threats from the Soviet Union weren't taken seriously, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. He wanted to redefine the nation's nuclear strategy by broadening the range of options and strengthening the military's ability to fight a non-nuclear war. Because of Kennedy creating an elite branch of army and tripling the nuclear capabilities of the U.S., we were able to fight limited wars and also maintain a balance of nuclear power with the Soviet Union. The world came very close to a nuclear war when a crisis arose on the island of Cuba. Before Kennedy became president, Eisenhower cut off relations with Cuba because of their leader, Fidel Castro. The U.S. had become suspicious of Cuba and their new government. Castro took over a couple of U.S. and British oil refineries, and tensions began to worsen between the United States and Cuba. Many people did not agree with Castro, so they became exiles in the United States. Eisenhower gave permission for Cuban exiles in the U.S. to be secretly trained for an attack on Cuba. Later, Kennedy came into office and knew little about the plan, but still agreed to it. On April 17, 1961, Cuban exiles with U.S. military backing them up landed on the coast of Bahia de Cochinos, aka Bay of Pigs. This plan had failed tremendously. The Cuban Air Force was supposed to be knocked out by an airstrike. The group that was supposed to distract Castro never reached shore, and when the main commando unit landed, they were faced with 25,000 Cuban troops. Kennedy was embarrassed that the plan had failed. Castro was paid $53 million in food and medical supplies and also agreed to the release of the surviving commando. After the invasion, Castro still had ties with the Soviet Union. They started sending missiles and other weapons to Cuba. Kennedy found out and alerted the nation that Cuba had missiles that were ready to be launched. For the next few days, the U.S. feared an attack. One day, Soviet ships stopped to avoid confrontation in the sea. Just a few days later, Soviet Union leader Nikita Khrushchev offered to remove missiles in exchange for the U.S. not to invade or attack Cuba. The U.S. agreed, and they also removed missiles from Turkey. The crisis was finally over. Meanwhile, in Berlin, 20% of East Germans fled to West Germany to be free of a communist government. Khrushchev wasn't the happiest with this decision, so he threatened to sign a treaty with East Germany that would enable the country to close access roads to West Berlin. Kennedy refused to give up. Because of his determination and power, it prevented Khrushchev from closing air and land routes. On August 13, 1961, East German troops started unloading posts and barbed wire and began building a wall that separated East Germany and West Germany. Although the crisis ended because of the building of the Berlin Wall, tension in the Cold War raised. Khrushchev was pleased with this because he got what he wanted, to stop East German refugees from going to West Berlin. After the crisis, Kennedy wanted to reduce the tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. He announced that there was a hotline, which is a communication line that allows the U.S. and the Soviet Union to contact each other if a crisis were to arise. Through all that he's done for the United States in the Cold War, Kennedy was a very favored person and president. Sadly, Kennedy died in 1963 from gunshot wounds to the head and neck.